How to completely ruin a good person? The answer is just a child's lie. The girl simply kissed her favorite teacher, but the teacher sternly reprimanded her. This sudden rejection left the girl resentful, so she turned to the principal to complain. Faced with the principal's inquiry, the girl falsely accused the teacher of exposing private parts in front of her. Initially skeptical, the principal's heart began to fill with an inexplicable fear as the girl vividly described the scenes, because those images were definitely not something a 6-year-old could imagine. After a moment of contemplation, the principal chose to believe the girl's lie. In her view, an innocent child would not lie. However, the principal did not realize that the scenes the girl depicted were just some inappropriate images she happened to see on her brother's computer. She had no idea, nor did she understand what they were. The next morning, with a heavy heart and a sense of unease, the principal found Lucas. She tentatively conveyed the girl's accusation to him. Lucas felt immensely confused, his mind a whirlwind of chaos, unsure of what had transpired. After careful consideration, the principal decided to grant Lucas an extended leave. She explained that he could only return to work once the situation had been thoroughly investigated and clarified. Later, the principal specially invited an experienced psychologist to conduct a detailed psychological assessment for the girl, perhaps to avoid upsetting the girl. The expert maintained a gentle and cautious demeanor throughout the process. His questions were extremely subtle and tactful, and after a relatively brief evaluation, the expert quickly reached a conclusion. Lucas was identified as the perpetrator by the expert, who self-righteously believed that Lucas deserved to go to hell. Subsequently, the principal solemnly informed the girl's family. Although the girl's mother did not believe this to be true, the principal was absolutely certain that the girl had been violated. Meanwhile, during a parent-teacher meeting, the principal exaggeratedly publicized Lucas's crimes, urging all parents to pay closer attention to their children and watch for any recent abnormal behavior. The parents were shocked upon hearing this news. They could never have imagined that Lucas, who always presented himself as honest and kind, could be such a hypocritical beast in sheep's clothing. Everyone felt an unprecedented sense of disappointment and anger. As darkness quietly enveloped the land, Lucas received a call from his son. On the other end of the line, his son's voice trembled with tears. Choked up, he said that his mother forbade any further contact between them. It turned out that the principal had already informed Lucas's ex-wife of the ugly incident. The next day, an enraged Lucas hurriedly sought out the principal to demand an explanation. However, the principal repeatedly evaded his inquiries, refusing to give him a chance for a direct response. The principal had already deemed Lucas irredeemable scum and had no intention of speaking to him any further. Poor Lucas remained clueless to this day. He had done nothing wrong, yet he was suddenly branded with baseless accusations. Frustrated and anxious, he kept warning the principal not to drag his innocent son into this turmoil. However, in the midst of a heated argument, the angry principal accidentally let slip the girl's name. Lucas attempted to argue further, but a self-righteous parent mercilessly expelled him from the kindergarten. As he walked away, he felt the once close children staring at him with a strange and suspicious gaze. Their doubts pierced his heart deeply, leaving him feeling desolate as if struck by cold arrows. Lucas couldn't comprehend why his friend's daughter would spread false rumors about him without cause. To uncover the truth behind this, he sought out his friend, hoping for answers. However, his friend only shed silent tears. Those tears held endless sorrow and pain, making it impossible to discern whether he mourned his daughter's actions or the collapse of trust between friends. At that moment, his friend's wife angrily approached Lucas, launching exaggerated accusations. Faced with this sudden onslaught, the usually gentle Lucas was left speechless, forced to sadly walk away. But just as he was about to step out of this suffocating space, his friend suddenly called out to him. The argument drew Clara's attention. Even though Lucas was being treated so unfairly, he still greeted Clara with kindness. Seizing the opportunity, Lucas quickly slipped away. Seeing this, the girl realized that it was likely her lie that had caused all of this. After a struggle of hesitation and self-doubt, she finally mustered the courage to tell the truth. However, upon hearing her daughter's confession, the mother did not react as expected by lifting her suspicions of Lucas. On the contrary, in her view, the only reason her daughter changed her statement was that she had likely been threatened or coerced by Lucas. In the end, the mother mercilessly placed all the blame on Lucas, seeing him as a monstrous villain beyond redemption. Yet, the most terrifying lie in the world is precisely the deeply ingrained belief that children do not lie. People instinctively assume that children are inherently innocent and incapable of falsehoods. As a result, whenever a lie comes from a child's mouth, suspicion toward the innocent becomes unavoidable, like an unshakable shadow, and those groundless accusations, once caught in the tidal wave of public condemnation, take on a life of their own, leaving the accused utterly defenseless. The incident soon spread like wildfire throughout the small town. Parents began claiming that their own children had also been victims. Outraged, they approached Lucas's girlfriend, hoping she would help gather evidence of Lucas's supposed crimes. They begged her to contribute to what seemed like a righteous crusade. At first, the girlfriend scoffed at the absurdity of the accusations. She knew Lucas's character well and could not possibly believe such baseless claims. But the next day, in an unexpected turn of events, Clara showed up at her door. Seeing her, Lucas's heart tightened. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then crouched down and gently asked Clara in the softest voice he could manage what had happened. But the girl's vague responses and evasive eyes made him realize that things were far from simple. A sense of impending doom surged in his heart, and he hurriedly pressed on with his questioning. Clara, overwhelmed by his persistence, instinctively backed away. This scene was caught entirely by his girlfriend, who stood behind him, watching. When she saw Clara burst into tears out of fear, doubts began to creep into her heart as well. Lucas's eyes turned red. He had never imagined that even the person closest to him would start doubting him. The loss of trust felt like a sharp blade, stabbing deep into his heart. This man, who had always endured everything in silence, finally broke down. In a fit of rage, he drove his girlfriend away. From this moment on, Lucas was completely trapped in an abyss of isolation. For days, he lay on his bed, refusing to eat or drink, as if he had become a lifeless shell. Now, he not only faced the material crisis of unemployment but also the piercing eyes of suspicion from everyone around him. His thoughtful son, worried about his father's condition, came to visit him. Looking at his father's haggard face and sunken eyes, the boy felt nothing but endless concern and helplessness. Although he firmly believed in his father's innocence, he was powerless in the face of the cruel rumors that tarnished his name. Shortly after, Lucas's younger brother also came to check on him. The next day, the boy went to the supermarket alone to buy daily necessities. But just as he finished paying and was about to leave, the shop owner called out to him coldly. There was hostility and warning in the owner's tone as he made it clear that neither he nor his father was welcome there anymore. The boy felt both powerless and furious at this sudden rejection and hostility. But in the end, he could only leave in silence. As he approached his home, another heartbreaking scene unfolded before his eyes. His father was being taken away by the police. He understood that, in the eyes of everyone, the crime had already been pinned on his father, and there was nothing he could do to change it. In his haste to leave earlier, the boy had carelessly forgotten his keys. With no other choice, he went to his father's old friend's house to seek help, because that was where the spare key to their home was kept. He pleaded with the man, asking if he could help prove his father's innocence. After all, they had once been the best of friends, but the man couldn't bring himself to do it, especially since the incident involved his own daughter. He fell into silence, his gaze complex as he studied the boy. Unsure of what to say, the boy asked to speak with the girl alone, hoping to uncover the truth, but everyone firmly refused. Frustrated, he directly confronted the girl, demanding to know why she had lied, but her response completely enraged him. His emotional outburst sparked public outrage, and he was mercilessly dragged out the door by a group of strong men. Faced with these towering men, he did not back down for a second. He swung his fist in anger, but in the end, he was the one knocked to the ground. One of the men tried to pin him down and continue the assault, but the girl's father eventually pulled him away. With a vicious glare, the man warned him never to set foot there again. Bruised and battered, the boy was taken in by his uncle. His uncle's family sat in the living room, their expressions grave as they discussed how to clear Lucas's name. The next day, the solemn courtroom was set to open for trial. Whether Lucas's family could regain their peace and happiness all depended on this moment. After exhausting all efforts to gather information, they discovered a shocking detail. All the children's testimonies were eerily identical. With tearful conviction, they claimed they had been assaulted, and all pointed the finger at the innocent Lucas. Even more astonishing was the fact that their descriptions of the crime scene were astonishingly vivid and consistent. They all stated that the location was Lucas's basement, describing every detail: the texture of the sofa, the color of the wallpaper, down to the finest specifics. But in the end, after rigorous police verification and a fair trial in court, the truth finally came to light. Lucas was exonerated. As he walked toward justice, father and son embraced each other tightly. Lucas glanced around, taking in the cool-toned surroundings. A long-lost sense of peace and relief washed over him. He thought that after enduring this storm, Life could finally return to normal, but what he didn't realize was that their nightmare had only just begun. That evening, as Lucas cooked dinner, enjoying a rare and precious moment with his son, something suddenly felt off. His body tensed. He grabbed a baseball bat and cautiously stepped out to investigate, but under the dim night sky, the figure had already vanished without a trace. Not far away, a black bag lay silently on the ground, an eerie presence against the quiet night. A sinking feeling of dread filled his chest, but he forced himself to move forward and check. The moment he opened the bag, his heart shattered into pieces. Inside lay his beloved dog, the companion he had raised for years. Grief overwhelmed him. He had done nothing wrong, nothing at all, yet this indescribable sense of powerlessness dragged him deeper into an abyss. His son could no longer hold back his emotions. He roared in frustration, venting his anger at the injustice of it all. Under the pouring rain, Lucas buried his loyal companion with his own hands. The law may have proven his innocence, but there was one thing he could not escape: the malice in people's hearts. To everyone else, Lucas was still guilty. He had simply managed to escape the punishment of the law. That day, Lucas went to the supermarket to buy some meat. The butcher, while slicing through a slab of pork, spoke coldly without even looking at him. The meat's sold out. Lucas glanced at the counter. It was clearly stocked with fresh cuts, but he stood his ground. He had done nothing wrong. Why should he be denied the simple right to buy a piece of meat? Seeing Lucas refuse to leave, one of the workers wiped his hands, then suddenly threw a punch, knocking him to the floor. There wasn't the slightest hint of guilt in the man's eyes. He believed he was doing the town a favor. Hearing the commotion, the store manager rushed over. The moment he saw Lucas, his expression darkened. "Get out!" he ordered coldly. Pain radiated through Lucas's body, but it was nothing compared to the humiliation burning inside him. He looked around, meeting the disgusted gazes of the onlookers. A deep fury and unwillingness boiled within him. He would not keep silent anymore. He would not let them trample over his dignity. But his defiance was met with even more ruthless violence. They struck him, kicked him again and again until they were too exhausted to continue. And then, as if throwing out garbage, they dumped his bruised and battered body outside the store. Lucas struggled to his feet, every movement pulling at his wounds with searing pain. Yet in his eyes, there was no defeat, only unshaken determination. He would not yield to their cruelty. With his body covered in cuts and bruises, he limped back inside. He was going to take what was rightfully his. And so, at the cost of his battered body, he finally walked out of the supermarket with what he came for. At that moment, his old friend and his family happened to witness the scene. Watching his former best friend reduced to this state all because of his daughter's lie, the man lowered his head. Though whether it was out of guilt or shame, even he wasn't sure. Lucas returned home and secluded himself in a dim room. His thoughts tangled like a messy web, unable to be unraveled. He felt perplexed, wondering why, despite always treating others with sincerity, he was repeatedly wounded by the cruelty of human nature. Suddenly, he seemed to have made some significant decision. He washed away the bloodstains in the bathroom, put on a sharp suit, downed a shot of strong liquor, and headed towards the church. It was Christmas Eve, and the town's church was illuminated, with residents gathered devoutly praying, the air filled with a sense of peace and tranquility. Yet, each of them was a murderer, self-proclaimed righteous murderers. As Lucas, with a face full of wounds, entered the church, the faces of the congregation displayed shock. Ignoring the gazes around him, Lucas sat in an empty seat. As the bishop solemnly began to pray, Lucas turned his head slowly. His gaze pierced through the crowd, landing directly on his friend, the instigator. Once his best friend, now a pain he couldn't shake from his heart. Under Lucas's stare, his friend's eyes began to dart around, a mix of guilt and deep fear. They faced each other in full view of everyone, time seeming to stand still in that moment, tension and confrontation palpable in the air. Subsequently, the children took the stage one by one, their clear voices echoing in the church. Clara was among them, standing on the stage. She appeared like a little angel, looking at the girl who had falsely accused him. Lucas felt an overwhelming sense of injustice welling up in his heart. His heart felt like it was gripped tightly by an invisible hand, making it hard for him to breathe. Unable to resist, he turned around once more, only to see the couple whispering to each other about him. Their every glance, every movement, seemed like a silent accusation and mockery directed at him. This made Lucas feel an overwhelming loss of control, his anger and grievance reaching their peak at this moment. When he could no longer endure the humiliation, Lucas left his seat. He walked through the crowd and went straight to his friend.
Hvad?
Det kan du godt lige holde op med, en fucking psykopat!
Jeg har lov til lige at snakke med Theo. Prøv at kigge lige ind i mine øjne. Kig ind i mine øjne. Kig. Hvad kan du se? Kan du se noget? Hvad siger du? Hvad? Ingenting. Der er ingenting. Der er ingenting.
After this incident, his friend fell into deep contemplation. He replayed every detail in his mind, and a sense of unease and guilt gradually rose within him. He finally realized that Lucas might have been wronged, and he himself had unknowingly contributed to the injustice. Sitting by his daughter's bedside, silent tears streamed down his face. Seeing her father so heartbroken, Clara hesitated for a moment before finally speaking the truth.
Det var bare mig, der sagde noget dumt noget. Han har ikke gjort noget.
Upon hearing her words, the father remained silent, not uttering a single sentence. He only gently tucked his daughter in, then went to the kitchen, took a bottle of liquor, picked up 2 pieces of meat, and made his way to Lucas's house in the middle of the night. Under the night sky, looking at Lucas's haggard appearance, the man felt deeply remorseful. There was no intense resentment, no hollow apologies, just the two of them quietly gazing at each other, their eyes deep and honest. In the end, Lucas raised his glass and chose to forgive. Time passed, the years flowed by, and in the blink of an eye, a year had gone by. Lucas meticulously prepared a coming-of-age ceremony for his son, and the townspeople came in droves. Their faces were filled with genuine smiles as they warmly shook hands and embraced Lucas, as if the past unpleasantness had never happened. In the midst of the celebration, Clara suddenly appeared at the doorway. She was still as fearful as before, hesitant to step onto the floor covered in intersecting lines. Lucas hesitated for a long time, his heart caught in an uncontrollable struggle. Yet, in the end, he walked over, gently bent down, and, with an unexpected tenderness, embraced the girl who had nearly destroyed his life. After the gathering ended, a group of people eagerly set out for a hunting trip. Deep in the dense forest, Lucas and his son accidentally got separated. However, he did not feel anxious or uneasy. Instead, he leisurely took in the scenery around him. He strolled through the woods, immersing himself in the tranquility and harmony of nature. At last, he was free. Suddenly, a deafening gunshot shattered the peaceful air. Lucas barely escaped death from the sudden attack. Still in shock, he turned to look at his assailant, only to see the person skillfully chambering another round with a cold precision. Just as Lucas thought his life was about to end, the attacker hesitated. Bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, the figure slowly turned away and walked off. Lucas never got a clear look at the person's face, because that person stood atop the moral high ground, basking in the sunlight, upholding what they called justice. This is a film as cold as ice, penetrating deep into the bones. Its narrative style is neither rushed nor sluggish, with a calm and rational cinematic language that brews a suffocating sense of oppression and madness beneath the surface. Some say that justice may be delayed, but it will eventually arrive. Yet justice that arrives late has already lost its original meaning, because by then, it is no longer justice at best. It is merely a truth used for self-consolation. When everyone stands on the moral high ground, criticism becomes an effortless act, but the impact of our words and actions on others is often unpredictable. We fear prejudice, yet we unknowingly become its architects. Though we all have the freedom to speak our minds, we must also remain in awe of that privilege, ensuring our voices do not become tools for manipulation. On the stage of discourse, we should build a fortress of truth and fairness, with facts and evidence as its solid foundation, neither losing ourselves nor succumbing to the will of others. The most terrifying thing about this film is that they even described the color of the walls in my basement, but I don't have a basement. I'm a film enthusiast. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.